Today on the Raakman Report, the world braces for impact as the Trump administration plans to institute sweeping tariffs on multiple countries, including ours. This plan is the latest in a series of ridiculous economic attacks from the Trump administration. We'll talk about how all of this might impact Canadians today. A Democratic senator breaks the record for the longest speech to the Senate. We'll talk about that as well. And an NYU professor has her talk canceled for being quote-unquote anti-governmental. No, this is not 1984, folks. This is real. All of this and more coming up shortly on your April 2nd, 2025 edition of the Raakman Report. All right, this is one of those stories where information changes so rapidly that I'm probably going to look like an idiot and have egg on my face just minutes after this has been posted, even if it's posted after 4 o'clock, which is not realistic. I might end up looking like a complete doofus worrying about these tariffs, but we're going to roll the dice today. Because this is one of the more important stories going on right now on April 2nd, which is probably not when this is going to be posted. So we'll talk about that with the info that I have right now. I'm not going to spend way too much time on this because it's being covered to death right now, and we've talked about everyone has their hot take on the tariffs. You don't need mine. It's probably pretty boring, but it's important for us to acknowledge. So, calling it Liberation Day, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, Donald Trump is set to announce a sweeping global tariff plan on 4 p.m. today. This follows similar announcements regarding 25% taxes on auto imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. So your Chrysler Pacifica built in Windsor, that's going to be a little bit more costly, Karen. Just keep that one in mind. Tariffs will increase costs to consumers. According to the Associated Press, quote, importers would likely pass along some of the cost on taxes onto consumers. The Budget Lab at Yale University estimates that a 20% universal tariff would cost the average household an additional $3,400 to $4,200, mind you, dollars. The Republican administration's premise is that the manufacturers will quickly increase domestic production and create factory jobs. Based on the possibility of broad 20% tariffs that have been floated by some White House aides, most analyses see an economy tarnished by higher prices and stagnation. U.S. economic growth, as measured by gross domestic product, would be roughly a percentage point lower. And clothing, oil, automobiles, housing, groceries, and even insurance would cost more, according to this analysis from the Budget Lab. So it's kind of overdone at this point to talk about how absolutely stupid this plan is from pretty much every perspective, really. It will end up hurting the people that Trump is trying to appeal to, his base, and just Americans as a whole, because prices will be higher and it might cripple the economy, according to some experts. Everyone seems to understand this except for Trump and his diehard loyalists. Even certain MAGA media figures like Ben Shapiro, who is a fast-talking BS artist, but it seems like even he cannot justify this, are saying that this is a stupid idea. Everyone seems to understand this except for the people in the White House, actually. And this will impact us as Canadians as well, because it will hike up our prices and create financial uncertainty, which we might see on Bay Street with our stock exchange. We'll just have to see in the coming days forward if this happens. We'll talk about the if later. That's the part that really burns me about these tariff stories. But I would just like to state that over half of our food imports come from the United States. That's a fact. And so we have a certain amount of dependence there. It's not insignificant, the impacts that we will face. So our Florida oranges will start costing more, for instance. If you like oranges, well, say thank you, Donald, if it gets more expensive. USA! But yeah, this is not great. It's going to make our lives more expensive. It's going to make your life more expensive if you're in the United States. All the major Canadian parties, Conservative, NDP, Liberal, are trying to turn this into a campaign issue for the upcoming federal election. They've come out and announced countermeasures in some instances. And you know what? It seems bipartisan that, we got to deal with these tariffs, which is fair because we got to deal with these tariffs. That's just a fact. If we have a trade war, we need to know that our leaders are going to be strong in facing this. And you know what? That might be an episode in its own, breaking down how all the leaders fare in this. The Conservatives aren't doing so hot on this issue. But so the issue I'm having with every tariff-related news story these days, and this is the last time you'll probably hear about me talking about tariffs for a while. I hate talking about the tariffs. It's stupid, and the whole thing is just ridiculous, is that I feel like America is playing chicken with us. Maybe I'm just an old soul, but have any of you ever heard of this? Back before people knew better, kids would run onto the train tracks at a train station and wait till the train comes up to them. People probably still do this, to be honest. The level of intelligence seems to be going these days. But and they would wait till the train comes just this close to hitting them, and they jump out of the way. That's what America's doing with us, folks. They are saying, oh, there's going to be tariffs. Oh, you put some people on the border? Okay, well, no more tariffs. Okay, maybe not, maybe not, maybe not. And I'm just done. I have tariff fatigue. We all have tariff fatigue. I think I speak for everyone. It's saying that tariff fatigue is a huge thing sweeping across Canada right now. I am fed up. We are all just fed up. If you want to create a recession in your country, America, just leave ours out of it. It will impact, I know it will impact us either way, but just stop it. I remember back in the olden days of 2 minutes ago, before the world went insane, when Canada and the US were strong allies, and one wasn't threatening to annex the other. This behavior is childish and stupid from the Trump side of the world. And another core thing here is Trump's recent announcement that he wants to do global tariffs, there are two realities here about global tariffs. There's the fake one where America will suddenly be able to manufacture every single thing, and it won't be certain states that only can make one thing, and we don't need imports, and most of our beef doesn't come from Brazil, and it's going to be all rosy sunshine and rainbows. And then there's the real one where Hawaii and California cannot produce nearly enough coffee beans for 48 other states, and everything is just going to get really expensive, and America is just going to suffer, and everyone's going to suffer with them because this is going to create a trade war. America needs its allies, and Trump wants to burn these allies, including us. Okay, so I'd like to talk about corporate pride in this next story, not pride in being a corporation. I hope very few people are proud of their corporations, but this is regarding the LGBTQ community and the Trump administration's escalating war on them in the name of abolishing DEI. Multiple high-profile corporations are pulling out of LGBTQ pride events in the United States. We are seeing major corporations like Target and Nissan ending their sponsorship deals with LGBTQ events due to backlash against things that the Trump admin believes are DEI related. Even here in Canada, Pride Toronto has lost 3 corporate sponsors due to this. We are experiencing the ripple effects once again here in Canada, so don't say that this doesn't impact us, guys, because it does actually. And you know what? This isn't about DEI. That's ridiculous. It's about bigotry, and we don't like people having the right to marry who they want to marry and trans people having the right to, be the gender that they wish to be. But leaving all that aside, this shows that these big corporations never cared about the LGBTQ community. They viewed this as a rainbow-colored shortcut to get more money in the coffers. And they viewed it as LGBTQ consumers as just that, consumers. Now that they are not a valuable consumer base, these corporations have decided that, we're just going to cut our losses and hope a few of them stick around. Now, LGBTQ consumers should not give them that hope. They should remember who supported them during this difficult, turbulent time and who deserves their financial support. And you know what? Over all of these corporations, I believe that these small businesses deserve your financial support most of all. Small businesses are struggling right now, and they tend to be due to these big box retailers that are pushing them out of their markets and of their towns. And you know what? It's time for us to stand up and say no to the big box retail. And remember, hey, there's a family-run florist around the corner. Always shop local. You know what? Most people knew that corporate rainbow washing was disingenuous and crass. All the opposition to queer existence sweeping the and you know what? With all the opposition to queer existence sweeping the globe right now, pride is returning to its roots. A protest. We're starting to see this more and more with pro-LGBTQ plus protests sweeping America. The point is, corporations won't save us, big business won't save us, and you have that right to protest. And this goes for every minority group, not just the LGBTQ community. Speaking of freedom of speech and the issues related to it, we have this story from The Guardian. NYU canceled a talk on USAID cuts for being anti-governmental, a doctor says. From the article, the former international head of Doctors Without Borders says she was left stunned after New York University canceled her presentation because some of her slides discussing cuts at the United States Agency for International Development, otherwise known as USAID, could be viewed as anti-governmental. Dr. Joanne Liu, a pediatric emergency physician at St. Justine Hospital and a professor at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, there we are again, who also served as the former international president at, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, which we will call it that from here on out, because my French friends probably had an aneurysm listening to me try to pronounce that, told CTV News last week that she was scheduled on the 19th of March to give a presentation at her alma mater on challenges in humanitarian crises. So this is obviously extremely authoritarian. It doesn't get more on the nose than an anti-governmental presentation. That's ridiculous. It sounds straight out of 1984. And it shows the ripple effects of Trump essentially pulling the funding out of universities like Columbia that found themselves in the crosshairs of the right-wing media. And it just shows that they never cared about freedom of speech. This was never something that they gave a crap about. This was all a con. And, you just couldn't get more on the nose if you tried than anti-governmental. And, this is just what this woman wanted to do was state facts. USAID cuts are impacting foreign nations, particularly in the developing world, that needed some of that aid. And, cutting off all the foreign aid, that has an impact. So speaking about the impact should not be anti-governmental. That should just be a fact, stating a fact. And if you're not allowed to state facts anymore because the government doesn't like it, can you say that, freedom of speech exists? I don't think so. I think that this is a major attack on freedom of speech and freedom of expression on college campuses and otherwise. And people should just, including students and professors alike, should stand up and say, no, we're not going to let you pressure us. We're not going to let you silence us. And we're not going to cave. And we will not back down to the pitchfork mob. And that's really all I have to say about that. Another story that everyone's talking about, similar to the tariffs, New Jersey Senator Cory broke the record for longest speech in the Senate, previously set by ex-South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond, who spent a night and a day railing against the Civil Rights Act in 1957. And you know what? Pause here. That is some dedication to being a racist jerk. Like, you spent a night and a day, around 24 hours, I believe. I don't have the number right in front of me, talking just basically about how you don't want civil rights to be a thing. Like, that is insane. That is a level of being a racist. And like, this is gold medal Olympian levels of being a jerk. Like, so you know what, Strom Thurmond, have a nice time in hell. It's a good thing. It's a little bit ironic, and hopefully, if there is an afterlife, hopefully he's struggling with the fact that a black man surpassed that record. And that's all I have to say about the Strom Thurmond aspect of this story. But here, I'm going to play the moment that Booker broke the record. Watch.
I just want to tell you a question. Do you know you have just broken the record? Do you know how proud this caucus is of you? Do you know how proud America is of you?
In just 71 days, the President of the United States has inflicted...
So a couple things about this. First of all, this is actually kind of impressive in a way. A guy admitted that he didn't use the bathroom the entire time, and we all saw it. He didn't eat, barely. I don't know if he sat down, but if he didn't, that's pretty impressive endurance. I'm not going to watch the whole 25 hours. I don't have that kind of time. Unfortunately, I've watched the highlight reel, if you can call it that. And you know what? You're standing there for a day and an hour just talking for 25 hours. That is a level of yapping that I can only aspire to. Like, I go to Toastmasters and I'm speaking here and I'm having a hard time filling a 40-minute to half hour to 40-minute long podcast with me talking. Forget 25 hours. I could not sit here and talk for 25 hours. I would collapse, and then there would be no more Raakman Report, Substack, or otherwise, because I would be dead. Death by yapping. That is, I would be the first person to die by yapping. And you know what? It's also nice to see a Democrat actually do something. Chuck Schumer has been completely useless. We all know that. Gavin Newsom is interviewing white nationalists like Michael Malice in an attempt to, curry favor with the Republican Party for his inevitable presidential run. So the whole state of the Democratic Party in the U.S. has been embarrassing. So it's nice to see someone actually protest a little bit, like exercise their ability to actually do something, even if, ironically enough, it's just talk. Like, people will regularly say, oh, it's just talk. I'll regularly say, oh, the Democrats, they're just talking. This is the only time I am fine with a Democrat just talking. If a Democrat's listening to this, my little podunk student podcast filmed in the RCC with rental equipment, if any of you, on the 1 in a million chance you're watching this, the only time you're allowed to just talk is if it's 25 hours or over. You need to work for it to get me and really anyone to praise you for just talking. You need to just talk to the point where you're about to drop otherwise. That is how the only time you are allowed to just talk. That's it. But, I mean, a more important thing, maybe this will get Republicans to care about the filibuster. You know, I think I've always thought there should be a maximum amount of time you should be allowed to speak in Congress. You know, cap it at a certain level. A realistic level, you know, people have to talk and all that, but I get it, it's Congress. You have long presentations. That is the nature of Congress. You should be allowed to talk. However, you shouldn't be allowed to talk for like 20 hours or even like, I think over 3 is getting really excessive. Like that's getting ridiculous. You shouldn't be allowed to speak for over 3 hours. Maybe even cap it lower. You know, very few things cannot be said in a concise amount of time. And if you cannot say that, maybe you need to work on your ability to deliver information properly. But yeah, there should be a maximum amount of time for how long you should be allowed to speak in Congress. I thought that before a guy I like did a long filibuster, and I like it after a guy I like did a long filibuster. I just do not like long filibusters. It's a waste of everybody's time. It can be used to throw a wrench in the proceedings of Congress, end it in the U.S. I'm not sure if we have rules against it in Canada, but if we don't, end it here, end the filibuster. And there have been many Democrats that have been saying there should be a maximum time for how long you should speak. So maybe this will get the GOP on board. Fox News is complaining about about Booker's filibuster right now. Everyone's complaining about Booker's filibuster right now in the right-wing media. So maybe this will get them to go, hey, maybe we should get rid of the filibuster. Maybe people shouldn't be allowed to speak for 25 hours without a break. You know, Ted Cruz, I think it was 21 hours, spent an insane amount of time bitching about Obamacare. And, you know, we have a lot of people that, senators and congressmen, who just think that not shutting up is a good way to, you know, throw a wrench in congressional proceedings. And you know what? If we can get the Republicans to just be petty and petty their way into accidentally supporting decent policy, that's fine by me. Any way that works, works. If we can get bipartisan support on ending the filibuster, that's awesome. One of the people that that was kind of blocking it, I think it was Christian Cinema. I don't know. I think Joe Manchin's still in there, whatever. They're the same guy. They suck. Screw Joe Manchin, screw Christian Cinema. I think we all know that by now. One of them is gone, so we have a little bit less of a wall now blocking actual legislation for getting rid of the filibuster. So, you know what? Let's get the GOP on board. Many Democrats are already on board. So if, you know, the petty jerk base of the Republican Party is on board, we will be there waiting, as we have all along. Now, to avoid filibustering about filibustering, our final story comes from the CBC. And as a journalism major, I think this is super important to talk about, which is, the headline is, as a small town Alberta newspaper shuts down, others fight to stay alive. This story discusses the shuttering of the East Central Alberta Review, which is a publication from Coronation, Alberta, which is 117 years old. It actually predates Coronation, Alberta's founding as a town, and it shut down recently, I believe on March 31st. And this is a really sad thing historically. It's really unfortunate that these ancient publications that have all this history and all this deep ties within their communities and within their regions are dying and shuttering It's really sad from that perspective. But from another perspective, local news, the death of local news, the slow death knoll that they're going down, is dangerous. So from 2008 to last month, 62 local news outlets in Alberta shut their doors. And this isn't just Alberta. This is an Ontario-based podcast. Alberta issues are important, but they don't get top billing. But this is a trend going on across Canada and in the U.S. A report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives found that almost 2.5 million Canadians live in a postal code with either 1 or 0 local news outlets, which is double the number that we saw in 2008. So you're probably still thinking, why should I care? A bunch of podunk little news outlets in the middle of nowhere shut down. Who cares? Just go on the internet. We all have Google. To be fair, I don't know if Coronation, Alberta does, but most of us have Google. So why should I care? Why should I care? Local news is way more important than you think. Local news provides an objective source of information for what's going on inside small communities. And what fills that vacuum when they close? Disinformation. So, a lot of people will turn to Facebook, to things like Facebook, and, I'm sure we all have that one thing where we have that one grandmother or that one uncle where it's like Meemaw, Peepaw, Uncle, whatever. Lay off the Facebook. Just lay off. That AI image of the secret city underneath the Capitol where you're going, is this true, sweetie? Is this real? That's not a thing. It's pretty easy to spread disinformation these days, considering that I could just get on this laptop right here and generate an AI image of, Donald Trump scoring a touchdown at the Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't know anything about football. If I ever cover football on this podcast, it'll be an embarrassing spectacle for all of us involved. But leaving all that aside, local news is important. Even if it doesn't cover important stories, the hockey game scores are pretty important to some people, and, what little Susie winning the baking contest, pretty important to some people. And local news doesn't just cover the local news. It covers what's going on in the world from the perspective of small towns. And that is important because oftentimes it is the only thing that people in these communities have. Otherwise, they got nothing. They just got Facebook, or in some cases, the domains are being bought up by malicious actors, foreign or otherwise, or domestic, and they're being used to spread disinformation under the name of this supposedly friendly local broadcaster. Or you have conservative media conglomerates like Sinclair in the States that I'm going to play a little clip of Sinclair Media, actually. This is Sinclair Media, ironically enough, saying that, I don't remember what the story is, but something is dangerous to our democracy. All 40 of their local news outlets. Watch.
Sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah. We're the ones dangerous to our democracy, not the guys spreading the exact same message over to dozens of communities and fostering propaganda and doing interviews with extremists that they air on every single local affiliate under their purview. That's not dangerous to our democracy. Opposing it is dangerous to our democracy, so says Sinclair. Anyway, so there are all these bad actors trying to sway local communities in America and the U.S. The U.S. and Canada that are trying to sway communities and push a message. And that message isn't always good. That message can be, don't get a life-saving vaccine, or buy these supplements, or go on InfoWars and listen to Alex Jones's latest unhinged rant of BS about the frogs being turned gay. These media outlets and these bad faith actors and just individuals on Facebook spreading misinformation unwittingly are essentially what you got instead of the local paper, But it's whatever, right? No one is saying that the local news has always got it right, or has always been the greatest thing since sliced bread, or has always been, this thing that's going to save us from the disinformation crisis. I am not saying that. But it is important, with all of the disinformation being spread right now, with all of the foreign actors trying to influence the way that you vote and the way that you behave, we need to use every tool in our toolbox. And local news is one of the most important tools we got right now. So all of its shuttering and the fact that it's under threat should be a concern to all of us. So that about does it for the Raakman Report today. I hope you enjoyed our first episode. I acknowledge that you never get anything perfect the first time, so it's probably not the greatest, and we'll have to work out some of the kinks. In how we broadcast this and how we do this. And if I continue to do this during the summer, it might end up being done on a webcam, which will be even more awesome. But I'm glad you stuck along for this long. And subscribe to the Raakman Report on Substack. There will be a link in the bio on our Instagram at Raakman Report. Email us with any story requests that you would like to see covered on the blog or on the podcast at raakmanreport@gmail.com. And that does it. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next one.